The next thing that I watched was all of Yuki Kaze. Now, I had mentioned this before in my pickups videos pretty recently. I just got the last disc or two that I needed for that. It's only 3 discs, and it's essentially 6 OAVs. They're relatively long. They're about 40 minutes each. And it's one of those things that they poured like money and effort and love into this series. And I remembered watching it back in the day, and I'd never finished it, so I've really wanted to finish it ever since then. It was obvious to me once I started watching that I'd only ever seen the first disc, but it gave me a little bit of a skewed perspective on what it was that I was watching, which I don't think is a bad thing. It wasn't quite what I was expecting, but it was still quite good. Um, and it's based on a book. The books actually, thankfully, are now translated. So I actually got the first one on Kindle, and I'm going to start reading that during my lunch breaks and things like that. I'm pretty excited to get through it. Um, but it's a series, when animated, where you really have to pay attention to it. It really demands your attention in terms of the way that it relays information. If you sort of zone out and space out and look away for a second, you're going to be rewinding to watch it again to try to figure out what was going on. And you aren't necessarily going to be able to figure out everything, right off, but there's a lot of subtlety in it. And I kind of appreciate how it's told that way. Um, Ultimately, there's even like a glossary that if you read on the DVD, it goes through like a whole glossary of terms of like a lot of stuff to do with the aviation that was in it. But let me start with the premise so you guys know what I'm talking about. Yuki Kaze is a story about like an intergalactic war. It feels like pretty near future, where if suddenly tomorrow this weird column of cloud appeared like near the Arctic, and alien invaders started pouring out of it. This is essentially flash forwards 30 years, and we've beaten back these alien invaders, and we've gone back through the column of mist into their world. Through some kind of dimensional portal that they've opened up, and we've established bases. We're fighting them on their home turf, but it's been so long. It's like for us now with I don't know what's the right distance back in the past, the Vietnam War or something like that. It's long enough ago that like probably a couple of generations of people have been born that just didn't live through it, weren't really around during that time, and so there's so little information. Like the information is clamped down about what's happening with this. People are kind of starting to think that it's just like it's almost a fairy tale. People are like, oh, are we really fighting aliens? It doesn't seem real anymore. So you follow a little bit an author who wrote a book about this, which is fiction, but it's based on a lot of real things. I mean, real in the context of the series. And then you're actually following specifically this one fighter pilot and his plane. His name is Ray. I forget what his last name is, and the plane is called Yukikaze. But so they're actually on this planet, and they're fighting this war, and it's just it's a very interesting series. Like I said, it really pays for people that want to pay attention. And if you want to read through that glossary, I ended up actually reading it on the first disc to get a lot of these terms, so I could really understand what's happening in the fight scenes. You almost have to do that. You sort of have to give enough of yourself to this show to meet it halfway and follow along. So I could really see people being forgiven for getting lost in this show. I think it's probably the reason why my friend and I didn't end up watching the rest of it. I think my friend didn't pick up the rest of it because we just watched it and we're kind of like, it demands a little bit of you. Now, I guess if you give yourself over to it and you put in the effort required to really appreciate this series, do you get enough back? I think is my question at the end. And I think I got enough back that I was satisfied. But for me, it didn't rise to the heights that I think something like this could have, where especially it seems like the budget that it had and the amount of care that went into it, the again the storytelling, just the subtlety and stuff, is a very interesting way of talking about things. It reminds me of the Skycrawlers actually, where that's another one. It's kind of cerebral. It pays for for you thinking about it a little bit, and if you're not really paying attention, you might just get to the end of it and be like, oh, what did I just watch? But I don't think the payoff is as good. I think there's a real payoff with Skycrawlers. You get to the end and you go, okay, that was a really interesting idea, kind of a fun ride. Yuki Kaze feels kind of the same way, but some part of it for me, I think, falls just short of greatness. And I almost think that it's the kind of thing that maybe, the people that might get into it the most, would be people that are actually really interested in the intricacies of air combat and sort of military terms, and maybe are just sort of like military otaku in general. I don't know if there is such a thing as much here as there is in Japan, but it almost seems to sort of like fetishize in that enough that it almost seems like that's some of the appeal of it. It's not all of it though. There's definitely an interesting story and just kind of it's sort of something that's worth experiencing to the end. But I think it, for me anyway, it just wasn't as epic as I was hoping. And I want to read the book because I want to see if maybe that was just something I missed about the animation. And kind of get a little bit more of just another take on the series. So it was interesting enough to me for that. Next up, I watched the rest of GeoBreeder's Breakthrough. Again, from one of my pickups videos recently, you might remember that series. I think I had called it like a lesser known classic from back in the day. It was something that I definitely had seen. It's an OAV series. I'm not quite sure how many OAVs, maybe 6, 7, something like that. And it's fun. I liked it. But I do think that the first DVD, in comparison to the second DVD is the one that I just watched recently. A lot of people online were saying, oh, the second DVD, it's even better than the first one. And I was kind of like, well, I don't know. It seemed less like, I mean, it was funny and goofy, and it does have kind of fun characters to it, but there isn't a lot of depth there. I think, from a series like this, it seems almost like parody in some ways, and it's almost like they're showing their influences really blatantly too. Sometimes it's like you've got the dual gun pistol wielding crazy shooter character who wears a suit, and like doves are flying by whenever they're like getting into a fight scene and stuff. It's completely John Woo sort of inspired, and then you run into stuff like that. But anyway, the series is interesting. I've talked about it in a previous video, so I'm not going to go into the intricacies of it. But it's essentially just an action series from the 90s, kind of a goofy action series. And for what it is, I think it's a lot of fun. I was disappointed, honestly, in GeoBreeder's Breakthrough, because I think it just wasn't quite as good as the first couple OAVs. And I was expecting to just laugh a little bit more and just enjoy the hijinks a little bit more towards the end. But I think it was still worth watching, and it was still there, and it actually comes to something of a conclusion. So I put it around with some other things like that just there's some fun stuff to it, but it's not it's not necessarily gonna change your life at all. TTS Airbats. sort of that kind of thing. Gunsmith Cats, that sort of stuff, where they're just fun series that I think are enjoyable to watch once. The next one that I saw was the whole series of Lost Universe. This is also a long series, a good like 26 episodes anyway. It's on 6 individual DVDs is how I have it. And this was one I talked about also. I'd been meaning to see for a long time. This is the creator of Slayers. They're an author. They write like light novels, basically. They're serialized in magazines in Japan that tend to publish this kind of stuff. Usually, they have a couple illustrations with them, and Slayers obviously was very popular. It spawned a manga series and an anime, and it was a lot of fun. You guys, if you are into anime at all, you've probably at least heard of Slayers. So, as a big Slayers fan, I've wanted to see Lost Universe for a long time. Again, it was one of those things back in the day I'd heard was not, it didn't really live up to, to that series, and more or less was skippable. Come to find out, I get where people were coming from. They were right, for the most part. That's not to say that this isn't a good series, though. I actually kind of liked it. And maybe I shouldn't say I kind of liked it. It's good. I do like it. And I was glad that I watched the whole thing. I will say, though, that it starts off a bit derivative, and I have to, having seen the whole thing now, I have to think that it's somewhat intentionally derivative. I'm imagining that the author was looking back on things, fondly that maybe they grew up with. So we're talking from like the late 70s and early 80s. Science fiction stuff. Star Wars, Dirty Pair, and Space Adventure Cobra so far. There are ideas that are lifted straight from those, and just the influences I think felt pretty well. So you have the main character, Kane Blue River. He's piloting a ship that is sentient and has a kind of a holographic, also able to interact with the real environment, sort of AI personality, who is called Canal, and she and he have this relationship sort of going back to like when he was a kid. This used to be his grandmother's ship, and he's kind of taken on her legacy, and is going out into the universe and basically trying to face up ultimately to the same rival that his grandmother was pit against. But it starts off, you have ideas from Dirty Pair in terms of just that he's like a trouble consultant. I forget what they call it in this, but it's almost the exact same thing. And he's going out, he's doing missions, he meets this girl, and they end up, just in the first episode, she ends up on his ship, and so they start the series sort of traveling together. So it's kind of like if you had Yuri and Kay, except only one of them is really working as a trouble consultant, and one of them is male and the other's female. So additionally, his weapon is a psi blade. So it uses like his psychic energy to create a lightsaber, essentially. So this seems very Space Adventure Cobra-ish, where he has the Psycho Gun, which it's a genius idea, because if you want to have some piece of technology that's unique in the universe, you tie it to somebody who, for whatever reason, their brain telekinetic energy is so powerful that they're basically the only person who can make a gun that channels their psychic energy. It's a really clever idea from Space Adventure Cobra. Used similarly in this with the Psi Blade, although I wouldn't say he's the only person that can do it, but it gives him some unique opportunities. Additionally, the ship that he pilots is a lost ship, is what they're called. He's kind of going with the Lost Universe thing. So the original ideas that this brings to the table, and maybe I just am not familiar with the other places that this is pulling ideas from, but I think the original ideas are actually pretty good. So you have this lost technology. There's like a handful of these ships that are just really, really powerful. They're kind of these relics that people are still find every once in a while, and they're sort of building up to like this evil organization is trying to amass as many lost ships as they can, and it's kind of the key thing around the whole plot is based around these lost ships, and it's good. I think the way that it starts off, again, you have cast. It seems like right from Slayers. You have the animation looks very similar. It's all very rooted in that time in kind of the mid '90s, and I think just in terms of the comedy, it's just it's all right. It's funny. It's fun. But again, it's not really high quality stuff. This is dropping it down a peg from Slayers. Additionally, I think it suffers from some of the things that Slayers does when things start to get serious. Sometimes that show starts to falter a little bit. This one actually, I think, holds up a little bit better in the serious story department because Kane Blue River has some backstory, and it gets a little melodramatic, it gets a little drawn out, but it sort of feels like the audience is aimed at a slightly younger child than Slayers is also. So I think that the series is colored a little bit by that, but at the same time, like a lot of these shows that really are ostensibly aimed at kids, I think it has some serious themes to it, and it even has some kind of like just kind of depressing, violent stuff that even me just sort of watching it in parts is going, wow, this is a little darker than where I thought that this was gonna go, and I think that's one of the unique things just about watching Japanese animation in general is it doesn't pull punches, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. It doesn't always feel like like they're trying to get something in there just to be edgy, but more, you get set up with a formula. You start watching something that seems kind of mindless, and then halfway through, the real meat of the series comes through, and most of the time, it has more depth than it was initially letting on, and I think that you find the same thing in Lost Universe. Overall, I would say the characters are good, and the series is just it's pretty fun. I was glad to have seen it. I wouldn't steer anyone away from it. I would just say don't get your hopes up really high. This is going to be kind of a middle of the road sort of series that's worth checking out. So that's it. That's the anime that I've watched recently. A lot of fun stuff, and I would say out of these. The biggest disappointment was definitely Tenchimuyo War on Geminar. That was a classic example of you get the hopes up here and something hits here, and it's just it was disappointing for me. Everything else I think was pretty good. It mostly fell into the as good as I was expecting or better than I was expecting category. Definitely some decent stuff here that I enjoyed watching. So definitely going to be watching a lot more stuff here coming up. Hope that you're enjoying these videos, and I hope you'll join me again for more anime impressions and video game related videos. Thanks for watching.